Calling all Fox fans. Calling all Fox fans. This live stream event is about to begin. My name is Norbert the Snowman, and I am proud to present Day 2 of the Festive Red Fox Book Club livestream event. Before we begin, who is out there in the audience tonight? We clearly have a magnificent audience watching. Please give me a hoot and a holler if you're out there listening. I already see Olivia out there, Madeline Clare, Rich Mitch, Shannon Kobayashi, Faye, and Alethea. Do you read me loud and clear? Who else is out there this evening? I see Mimi Shimaneko, Rachel Port, Scream Orange, EA. Who else is out there this evening? What's this? I'm getting the nod. It looks like we're ready to begin. So please do make our host feel welcome. The one and only, the man of the moment. Reading out of Stockholm, Sweden. In the book corner. Weighing in at 190 pounds. Stephen Red Fox Garnett. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Nice to see you this evening. Proud to be here. It's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be a good one. Let's do it this evening, Fox fans. Nice to see you. Thank you, Norbert, for the announcement. Let's get going. Let's get fired up for some story time. Who else is out there this evening? I am proud to be your host tonight. I also see Kat Webster, Tiffany Woods, Holly. Who else do we have ready for some more calm, festive, relaxing reading tonight? We are going to be continuing with The Snow Queen by H C Andersen. Why is my chat frozen on the screen? I'm going to have to refresh that one by the looks of it. I see all the chat coming in, but on screen there was only just a tiny little bunch. I don't want to refresh it here. I don't want to lose the first messages that I can see. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to Tom. Welcome to Ellie Sif. Yes, it does, Holly. You're asking about Twitch with the Amazon Prime. Yes, that does work for UK creators as well. So you can join for free over on Twitch if you would like to subscribe to me on Twitch and offer a little bit of support. You do get one free Twitch subscription with Amazon Prime. So you can sort of sponsor me through Twitch if you would like to do that through your Amazon Prime. But how are we all doing? Merry Christmas to Tiffany Woods. Thanks ever so much. I hope things are going as smoothly as they possibly can at this time of year. And after such a very odd 2020 as well, of course. Oh, thank you so much. I was just hoping that the chat was actually working again. It had gone a little bit quiet. And then I hope that notification pops up for you as well. It should do in a second. Thank you so much to EA for the $20 super chat. Yeah, there it is. Thank you so much, EA. And you said, thank you so much for sharing your talent with us. I enjoy listening to your readings. Happy holidays. Thank you so much. That's really, really, really kind. I was just saying on yesterday's stream, I know it sounds obvious, but just how much I value and really like cherish your support. And I just made a little post about a couple of things on my YouTube community tab today. So I was saying that if you want to listen to a lot of my old content that's no longer on YouTube, you can join me over on Patreon and access downloadable audio libraries over there. But I also just wanted to take the opportunity to say thank you for your continued support. So even though I can no longer produce Harry Potter and works by Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and all these things that are so popular and so fun and famous and everything, and a little bit more modern than a lot of the stories that I'm focusing on at the moment, although the channel took a major hit, it's still so amazing to see so many of you out there following, tuning into live streams like this one and the one that we had yesterday, and the premieres for Dracula, and leaving such lovely, heartfelt, genuine comments on so many of my videos and everything. So yeah, thank you so much. Oh, I wish it was 300,000 subscribers, Holly. That would be impressive. Not to undervalue the almost 30,000 that I do have, amazingly. Yeah, I'm sporting the fancy sweater again today. I didn't want to go with the same sweater as yesterday's stream. I thought it might be a bit confusing almost. Yeah, a 30,000 subscriber party. Yeah, I was supposed to have one for 20,000, and it coincided almost directly with all of the Lord of the Rings getting taken down. So you can imagine that my party spirit was a little compromised by that. But I'll absolutely have a live stream for 30,000. I'm hoping to have a couple more live streams during this sort of festive winter period. So as I said yesterday, I am away from home just for a couple of nights. So I won't be able to stream on the 23rd, 24th, 25th, maybe even 26th. But I would definitely like to have a stream or two before the new year. And whenever 30,000 subscribers drops, if I'm fortunate enough to reach that milestone, then yeah, it would be really nice to have a live stream for that, like I did with other milestones in the past. Yeah, it's all down to Google Drive, really, Holly, when talking about older works being available. I've always used Google Drive as a cloud storage, and as a way of providing audio libraries and video libraries, basically, for those of you that choose to follow me over on Patreon. So depending on what pledge you pledge every month, depending on what tier you're in, there's different things available. And I've been thinking of revamping Patreon and maybe just simplifying things a little bit, because I made certain changes due to certain things that were going on at the time, and things have changed a little bit. So I'm having a think about it anyway. But as it currently stands, you can join me for $1 a month, and that basically just allows you to access the community and access the posts, and talk with me through private chat in Patreon, and you're just providing that little bit of support every month, like $1 a month, and those posts regularly contain a little bit of early access. So like with Dracula, for example, and I did the same with Lord of the Rings and other stories in the past, I always upload things to Patreon, so there's audio files actually in the Patreon app, so you can listen to things there, download things there, and I try to share them maybe a day or two before they go on YouTube. But if you support me at $2 or at $5 or at $10, I also have a range of Google Drive folders that I use as audio libraries, you see. So you can access things that are no longer on YouTube, and you can also access basically just about every video, live stream, recording that I've ever made for YouTube or Twitch over the last 3 years. And there's a few sort of exclusive things on there as well, and older bits and pieces and little demos that I'd done from way back. And I try to share absolutely everything, really. So thank you so much to all of you that have supported me for yet another year, or whether you just joined me, someone joined yesterday as an annual supporter, so thank you so much to them. And yeah, for those of you that have been supporting me through Super Chat since I've had monetization on my channel, which is actually a relatively new thing for me. And those of you that have been supporting me with bits over on Twitch, or subscriptions and PayPal donations and all that sort of thing. And also just thank you for all the comments. Thank you for the views and the likes and the shares and the subs and all the rest of it. It's absolutely wonderful. And yeah, Tom's just saying, I actually mentioned that over on Facebook, I think it was, Tom, that you were aware that The Snow Queen was actually published on this date back in 1844. So I just thought that was such a remarkably fitting day to share this with you. So yeah, thanks so much for that, Tom. I always look at the publication year, of course, when I'm looking into a book or whatever. But I actually don't really take in the day that it was published. So yeah, it hadn't lodged, even if I'd skimmed it. It hadn't lodged that it was first published 21st of December 1844. So yeah, I thought that was absolutely fantastic, Tom. Did I miss anybody else coming into the chat? I would like to get started with the reading as soon as possible. Is there anybody in the chat today that hasn't listened to the first part of The Snow Queen that we were reading yesterday? I don't think... Oh, Caitlin! I've not officially welcomed you, Caitlin. I just saw you and I'm like, familiar face. But yeah, I haven't actually said hello. Welcome, Caitlin. Very nice to see you. And welcome, Tom, officially, even though I've been talking about you. Good stuff. But yeah, I wonder who has missed that. You can always catch up later, of course. All my streams are all available. But yeah, fantastic if you're tuning in, obviously, for the second day in a row, if you've already listened to the first 3 parts, then it's a bonus. But so Rachel and Caitlin, you've both missed yesterday. Hopefully you still enjoy the reading today. I was just having a final little skim through the chat, trying to make sure I'd not missed anything. Oh, Rachel was saying, have you thought of The Happy Prince by Oscar Wilde? I've considered various Oscar Wilde things. I was just mentioning one yesterday. But I've honestly not thought about The Happy Prince. I should look into it, Rachel. I can try and add it to the list of possibilities. Yeah, thanks so much for the bookmarks, Shannon. You know how much I appreciate that. I try and do it as well, but today I'd honestly not even really paused for a second to think about the bookmarks. So thank you so much for doing that. So yeah, like if you go over to yesterday's live stream, Shannon has kindly bookmarked a few little events through the stream, including when the Snow Queen begins and the various sort of chapters, the stories throughout, and also a bookmark for 'Twas the Night Before Christmas that we also read at the end of yesterday's stream, which was a lot of fun. And yeah, I've never read this story before, and I've never read 'Twas the Night Before Christmas before either, so good fun for me. Oh, you're moving at the moment, Caitlin. Ouch. I think somebody else was mentioning they were moving as well. This is not a fun time to move. I moved roughly this time last year. Before then moving again just a few months later. And it's rough. It's rough. I hope it goes smoothly for you, Caitlin. And absolutely continuing to be excellent. Oh, and welcome to Caroline. Yeah, thank you. This is Norbert. He was named yesterday. Actually, he had his name day yesterday. And A Christmas Carol here. I am horribly behind. Oh, one of the candles has gone wonky. It's not a fire hazard. It's totally under control. It's just because there's a little bit of candle left in from yesterday, so it's making it a bit harder to line it up properly. I didn't gouge out the old candle properly. But yeah, I'm horribly behind with editing up last Christmas's live reading of A Christmas Carol. I really wanted that to be shared in time for Christmas. I didn't really mind if it was quite far into the Christmas period. You know, if I shared my little complete audiobook of A Christmas Carol on Christmas Eve or something, I didn't really mind. But I'm worried that I'm not going to get it finished in time. But I'll try my best. I will try my best. Yeah. It was quite calm. It was quite calm. I was really trying to keep it rather peaceful, but you know what I'm like. I can get a little bit carried away sometimes. And as I've never read it, and I've not even done a pre-read for the live stream or anything. Only the first story did I read beforehand. It's quite a challenge. It's quite a challenge. Like I said yesterday, those flowers really took me off guard. But it was interesting. It was interesting, and I'm absolutely enjoying the story. As someone said in the chat yesterday, they don't make stories like this anymore. It is true. Okay, so I'm just gonna set things up as I had them yesterday. So let's pop that back. What did we think of the illustrations, by the way? I don't really mean the illustrations themselves, but my use of having the illustration up on screen. You know, maybe I should make it a little bit smaller. I just I wanted to do the illustration justice, you see. So, you know, I could have it like this instead of having it so large. But I just wanted a little accompaniment. I know it looks a bit goofy, you know, it's not exactly the most professional live stream layout you've ever seen or anything, but I just wondered if you thought it was a nice addition, or maybe I should just show the illustration at the start of the story and then click it off, and then you can just have the candle light behind instead. You know, maybe I should just show it before the chapter, or, you know, at the start of the chapter and then click it off or something. But yeah, don't know. I'm just curious as to what you think. Whether I should leave the illustration on throughout, or just show it at the beginning and then, you know, just remove it so you can see the little background. Just curious. Just curious what you're thinking. And thank you. Oh, you seem to have liked it. Oh yeah. Yeah, it was a big one, that, Holly. It was a big one. I've probably got it mixed up with some other crazy streams where you've been incredibly generous, but I think it was about maybe about $160 or something. Yeah, it was nutty. There was a few of you chipping in for that 10,000 subscriber party. Yeah, but there's been a few times where you've been ridiculously generous, so I'm not sure if I'm mixing it up with a different one. But if it's the particular one I'm thinking of, I think it was about 160 or something like that. I wonder if I'm mixing it up though, because I think that was on Twitch where I'm picturing like this really crazy one. I wonder if the 10,000 one was like 60 or 70 or something. But that, yeah, I'm not sure. I would have to check it. I'd have to check it, but you are amazingly generous. So yeah, thank you. So yeah, okay. I will leave. Shall I leave the illustrations on then? I'm still so on the fence here. I'm still so on the fence. Like yesterday, I had it like something like this, approximately. I'm trying to get it sort of symmetrical with the text, but yeah, I had it something like this, and I tried to make sure that I was over here somewhere, roughly like this. And like I said yesterday, as I'm not using the pop shield, I hope I wasn't firing too many plosives at you. And I've not actually listened back to the stream yet, only the beginning and a little bit of the stuff on Twitch, because I just wanted to see how things had looked over there. Yeah, this is your chance to let me know if you thought the sound quality was a lot worse than you're used to yesterday. So I've been having a bit more distance from the microphone and not using the pop shield. I'm just experimenting with things a little bit on the live streams. Oh, thank you. All right. Then I will leave the illustrations up. Oh, but then that makes sense, Shannon. That makes sense. Yeah, right, okay. Yeah, of course it was on Twitch. I sort of advertised the stream on YouTube, didn't I? And then I did sort of a Twitch test the night before where I read War of the Worlds. And then on the actual party night, yeah, I'd got the champagne going as well. Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, it's like, you know how I feel, right? Like this year has been such a long and strange one. It feels so long ago, and my memory is weirdly hazy over that. Probably the champagne. But yeah, of course it was on Twitch. So yeah, I think it was something like $167 or something that you threw at me that stream. It was absolutely bananas. Absolutely bananas. Okay, shall we get started? I would like to finish this story today. So we've had 3 of the stories. The book is made up of 7 short stories. So we've got 4 to go, but we are approximately halfway through. So it was a fairly logical stopping point. And yeah, hopefully the volume is okay, sound quality is okay, and we can get started. Now is your time to let me know. You've gone quiet. Okay. I think you're all running off to get cups of tea and soft blankets and things. Although it's making me worried that the stream's disconnected or something, but I don't think it can. Talk to me, Fox fans. I think everything's alright. Oh dear, Kaylin. Oh dear. I had a similar thing actually. I was distracted and ended up knocking a cup of coffee over my keyboard. But this keyboard is hard as nails. It just shrugged it off, to be honest. It's an old gaming keyboard, so I think they must make them sort of spill-proof, damage-resistant. Because I spilt some milk on it. I never spill. I'm not a clumsy person by habit. And about 4 days ago, I spilt some milk on it, and then today I spilt some coffee on it. But it doesn't seem to mind at all. So, oh, you've been hunting, Shannon. It should be there. It should be there. I'll have a look for it tomorrow if I can remember. It should be there. I'm really worried it's not being saved, but I'm sure it's there. It's definitely in the Google Drive. Okay. Yeah, I will get started. I was going to start talking about something else, but it's not the time. Okay, so let's take it easy for a little while. Let's have some relaxing reading. I'll try not to get too carried away. Although I've not looked at this today either. I was very tempted, but I thought, no, I'll just keep it natural as it has been. But I've just seen a certain character name, which I will struggle to not embody. Okay, so thank you for being here, everybody. Merry Christmas to those of you that celebrate it. Happy holidays. Happy winter solstice. And all those other events that are going on at the moment. I hope you're doing as well as possible. It's obviously a very difficult time for many people at the moment. You know, there's always difficult times around the world for so many people, unfortunately, but 2020 has obviously been a very strange year, so I hope you're doing well. Yeah, there you go, Olivia. It's one of those days. Sounds lovely, Kat. Sounds lovely. Okay. So, this is part 2, an unofficial part 2, of Hans Christian Andersen's The Snow Queen. Fourth story. The Prince and the Princess. The next time that Gerda was forced to rest, a big crow came hopping across the snow in front of her. For a long time he'd been watching her and cocking his head to one side. And now he said,
"Caw, caw, good caw day."
He could not say it any better, but he felt kindly inclined toward the little girl, and asked her where she was going in the great wide world, all alone. Gerda understood him when he said,
"Alone?"
and she knew its meaning all too well. She told the crow the whole story of her life, and asked if he hadn't seen Kai. The crow gravely nodded his head and cawed,
"Maybe I have. Maybe I have."
"What? Do you really think you have?" the little girl cried, and almost hugged the crow to death as she kissed him.
"Gently, gently," said the crow. "I think that it may have been little Kai that I saw. Ah! But if it was, then he has forgotten you for the princess."
"Does he live with a princess?" Gerda asked.
"Yes. Listen," said the crow. "But it is so hard for me to speak your language. If you understand crow talk, I can tell you much more easily."
"I don't know that language," said Gerda. "My grandmother knows it just as well as she knows baby talk, and I do wish I had learned it."
"No matter," said the crow. "I'll tell you as well as I can, though that won't be any too good."
And he told her all that he knew.
"In the kingdom where we are now, there is a princess who is uncommonly clever, and no wonder. She has read all the newspapers in the world and forgotten them again. That's how clever she is. Well, not long ago she was sitting on her throne. That's by no means as much fun as people suppose. So she fell to humming an old tune, and the refrain of it happened to run, "Why, oh why shouldn't I get married?" "Why, that's an idea," said she, and she made up her mind to marry as soon as she could find the sort of husband who could give a good answer when anyone spoke to him, instead of one of those fellows who merely stand around looking impressive, for that is so tiresome. She had the drums drubbed to call together all her ladies in waiting, and when they heard what she had in mind, they were delighted. "Oh, we like that," they said. "We were just thinking the very same thing." "Believe me," said the crow, "every word I tell you is true. I have a tame lady love who has the run of the palace, and I had the whole story straight from her."
Of course his lady love was also a crow, for birds of a feather will flock together.
The newspapers immediately came out with a border of hearts, and the initials of the princess, and you could read an announcement that any presentable young man might go to the palace and talk with her. The one who spoke best, and who seemed most at home in the palace, would be chosen by the princess as her husband. Yes, yes, said the crow. Believe me, that's as true as it is that here I sit. Caw! Men flocked to the palace, and there was much crowding and crushing, but on neither the first nor the second day was anyone chosen. Out in the street they were all glib talkers, but after they entered the palace gate where the guardsmen were stationed in their silver-braided uniforms, and after they climbed up the staircase lined with footmen in gold-embroidered livery, they arrived in the brilliantly lighted reception halls without a word to say. And when they stood in the front of the princess on her throne, the best they could do was to echo the last word of her remarks. She didn't care to hear it repeated. Caw! It was just as if everyone in the throne room had his stomach filled with snuff and had fallen asleep, for as soon as they were back in the streets there was no stopping their talk. The line of candidates extended all the way from the town gates to the palace. I saw them myself, said the crow. They got hungry and they got thirsty, but from the palace they got nothing, not even a glass of lukewarm water. To be sure, some of the clever candidates had brought sandwiches with them, but they did not share them with their neighbors. Each man thought, just let him look hungry, then the princess won't take him.
But Kai, little Kai, Gerda interrupted. When did he come? Was he among those people?
Give me time, give me time. We are just coming to him. On the third day, a little person, with neither horse nor carriage, strode boldly up to the palace. His eyes sparkled the way yours do, and he had handsome long hair, but his clothes were poor.
Oh, that was Kai, Gerda said, and clapped her hands in glee. Now I've found him.
He had a little knapsack on his back, the crow told her.
No, that must have been his sled, said Gerda. He was carrying it when he went away.
Maybe so, the crow said. I didn't look at it carefully. But my tame ladylove told me that when he went through the palace gates and saw the guardsmen in silver, and on the staircase the footmen in gold, he wasn't at all taken aback. He nodded and he said to them, "It must be very tiresome to stand on the stairs. I'd rather go inside." The halls were brilliantly lighted. Ministers of state and privy councillors were walking about barefooted, carrying golden trays in front of them. It was enough to make anyone feel solemn, and his boots creaked dreadfully, but he wasn't a bit afraid.
That certainly must have been Kai, said Gerda. I know he was wearing new boots. I heard them creaking in Grandmother's room.
Oh, they creaked all right, said the crow, but it was little enough he cared as he walked straight to the princess, who was sitting on a pearl as big as a spinning wheel. All the ladies in waiting with their attendants, and their attendants' attendants, and all the lords in waiting with their gentlemen and their gentlemen's men, each of whom had his page with him, were standing there. And the nearer they stood to the door, the more arrogant they looked. The gentlemen's men's pages, who always wore slippers, were almost too arrogant to look as they stood at the threshold.
That must have been terrible, little Gerda exclaimed. And yet Kai won the princess.
If I weren't a crow, I would have married her myself, for all that I'm engaged to another. They say he spoke as well as I do when I speak my crow language, or so my tame lady love tells me. He was dashing and handsome, and he was not there to court the princess, but to hear her wisdom. This he liked, and she liked him.
Of course it was Kai, said Gerda. He was so clever that he could do mental arithmetic even with fractions. Oh, please take me to the palace.
That's easy enough to say, said the crow. But how can we manage it? I'll talk it over with my tame lady love, and she may be able to suggest something. But I must warn you that a little girl like you will never be admitted.
Oh, yes, I shall, said Gerda. When Kai hears about me, he will come out to fetch me at once.
Wait for me beside that stile,
the crow said. He wagged his head, and off he flew. Darkness had set in when he got back.
Caw, caw,
he said.
My lady love sends you her best wishes, and here's a little loaf of bread for you. She found it in the kitchen, where they have all the bread they need, and you must be hungry. You simply can't get into the palace with those bare feet. The guardsmen in silver and the footmen in gold would never permit it. But don't you cry. We'll find a way. My lady-love knows of a little back staircase that leads up to the bedroom, and she knows where they keep the key to it.
Then they went into the garden, and down the wide promenade, where the leaves were falling one by one. When, one by one, the lights went out in the palace, the crow led little Gerda to the back door, which stood ajar. Oh, how her heart did beat with fear and longing! It was just as if she were about to do something wrong. Yet she only wanted to make sure that this really was little Kai. Yes, truly, it must be Kai, she thought, as she recalled his sparkling eyes and his long hair. She remembered exactly how he looked when he used to smile at her as they sat under the roses at home. Wouldn't he be glad to see her? Wouldn't he be interested in hearing how far she had come to find him, and how sad they had all been when he didn't come home? She was so frightened, and yet so happy. Now they were on the stairway. A little lamp was burning on a cupboard, and there stood the tame crow, cocking her head to look at Gerda, who made the curtsy that her grandmother had taught her.
My fiancé has told me many charming things about you, dear young lady, she said. Your biography, as one might say, is very touching. Kindly take the lamp, and I shall lead the way. We shall keep straight ahead, where we aren't apt to run into anyone.
It seems to me that someone is on the stairs behind us, said Gerda. Things brushed past, and from the shadows on the wall they seemed to be horses with spindly legs and waving manes. And there were shadows of huntsmen, ladies and gentlemen, on horseback.
Those are only dreams, said the crow. They come to take the thoughts of their royal masters off to the chase. That's just as well, for it will give you a good opportunity to see them while they sleep. But I trust that, when you rise to high position and power, you will show a grateful heart."
Tut, you've no need to say that,
said the forest crow. Now they entered the first room. It was hung with rose, coloured satin, embroidered with flowers. The dream shadows were flitting by so fast that Gerda could not see the lords and ladies. Hall after magnificent hall quite bewildered her, until at last they reached the royal bedroom. The ceiling of it was like the top of a huge palm tree, with leaves of glass, costly glass. In the middle of the room, 2 beds hung from a massive stem of gold. Each of them looked like a lily. One bed was white, and there lay the princess. The other was red, and there Gerda hoped to find little Kai. She bent one of the scarlet petals, and saw the nape of a little brown neck. Surely this must be Kai. She called his name aloud and held the lamp near him. The dreams on horseback pranced into the room again, as he awoke, and turned his head. And it was not little Kai at all. The prince only resembled Kai about the neck, but he was young and handsome. The princess peeked out of her lily-white bed and asked what had happened. Little Gerda cried, and told them all about herself, and about all that the crows had done for her. Poor little thing, the prince and the princess said. They praised the crows, and said they weren't the least bit angry with them, but not to do it again. Furthermore, they should have a reward. "Would you rather fly about without any responsibilities?" said the princess. "Or would you care to be appointed court crows for life, with rights to all scraps from the kitchen?" Both the crows bowed low and begged for a permanent office, for they thought of their future and said it was better to provide for their old age, as they called it. The prince got up and let Gerda have his bed. It was the utmost that he could do. She clasped her little hands and thought, "How nice the people and the birds are." She closed her eyes. She clasped her little hands and thought, "How nice the people and the birds are." She closed her eyes, fell peacefully asleep, and all the dreams came flying back again. They looked like angels, and they drew a little sled on which Kai sat. He nodded to her, but this was only in a dream, so it all disappeared when she woke up. The next day she was dressed from her head to her heels in silk and in velvet too. They asked her to stay at the palace and have a nice time there, but instead she begged them to let her have a little carriage, a little horse, and a pair of little boots, so that she could drive out into the wide world to find Kai. They gave her a pair of boots, and also a muff. They dressed her as nicely as could be, and when she was ready to go, there at the gate stood a brand new carriage of pure gold. On it the coat of arms of the prince and princess glistened like a star. The coachman, the footman, and the postilions, for postilions there were, All wore golden crowns. The prince and the princess themselves helped her into the carriage and wished her Godspeed. The forest crow, who was now a married man, accompanied her for the first 3 miles and sat beside Gerda, for it upset him to ride backward. The other crow stood beside the gate and waved her wings. She did not accompany them because she was suffering from a headache brought on by eating too much in her new position. Inside, the carriage was lined with sugared cookies, and the seats were filled with fruit and gingerbread. "Fare you well, fare you well," cried the prince and princess. Little Gerda cried, and the crow cried too, for the first few miles. Then the crow said,
"Goodbye."
And that was the saddest leave. Oh, and that was the saddest leave-taking of all. He flew up into a tree and waved his big black wings as long as he could see the carriage, which flashed as brightly as the sun. Okay. Fifth story. The Little Robber Girl. The carriage rolled on into a dark forest. Like a blazing torch, it shone in the eyes of some robbers. They could not bear it. "That's gold! That's gold!" they cried. They sprang forward, seized the horses, killed the little postilions, the coachman and the footman, and dragged little Gerda out of the carriage. "How plump and how tender she looks, just as if she'd been fattened on nuts," cried the old robber woman, who had a long bristly beard and long eyebrows that hung down over her eyes. "She looks like a fat little lamb. What a dainty dish she will be." As she said this, she drew out her knife, a dreadful, flashing thing. "Ouch!" the old woman howled. At just that moment, her own little daughter had bitten her ear. The little girl, whom she carried on her back, was a wild and reckless creature. "You beastly brat!" her mother exclaimed, but it kept her from using that knife on Gerda.
"She shall play with me," said the little robber girl. "She must give me her muff and that pretty dress she wears, and sleep with me in my bed."
And she again gave her mother such a bite that the woman hopped and whirled around in pain. All the robbers laughed and shouted, "See how she dances with her brat."
"I want to ride in the carriage,"
the little robber girl said, and ride she did, for she was too spoiled and headstrong for words. She and Gerda climbed into the carriage, and away they drove over stumps and stones into the depths of the forest. The little robber girl was no taller than Gerda, but she was stronger and much broader in the shoulders. Her skin was brown, and her eyes coal black, almost sad in their expression. She put her arms around Gerda and said,
"They shan't kill you unless I get angry with you. I think you must be a princess."
"No, I'm not," said little Gerda, and she told about all that had happened to her, and how much she cared for little Kai. The robber girl looked at her gravely, gave a little nod of approval, and told her,
"Even if I should get angry with you, they shan't kill you, because I'll do it myself."
And she dried Gerda's eyes and stuck her own hands into Gerda's soft, warm muff. The carriage stopped at last, in the courtyard of a robber's castle. The walls of it were cracked from bottom to top. Crows and ravens flew out of every loophole, and bulldogs, huge enough to devour a man, jumped high in the air. But they did not bark, for that was forbidden. In the middle of the stone-paved, smoky old hall, a big fire was burning. The smoke of it drifted up to the ceiling, where it had to find its own way out. Soup was boiling in a big cauldron, and hares and rabbits were roasting on the spit.
"Tonight you shall sleep with me and all my little animals,"
the robber girl said. After they had something to eat and drink, they went over to a corner that was strewn with rugs and straw. On sticks and perches around the bedding roosted nearly 100 pigeons. They seemed to be asleep, but they stirred just a little when the two little girls came near them.
"They are all mine,"
said the little robber girl. She seized the one that was nearest to her, held it by the legs, and shook it until it flapped its wings.
"Kiss it,"
she cried, and thrust the big bird in Gerda's face.
"Those two are the wild rascals," she said,
pointing high up the wall to a hole barred with wooden sticks.
"Rascals of the woods they are, and they would fly away in a minute if they were not locked up. And here is my old sweetheart, Bay,"
she said, pulling at the horns of a reindeer that was tethered by a shiny copper ring around his neck.
"We have to keep a sharp eye on him, or he would run away from us too. Every single night I tickle his neck with my knife blade, for he is afraid of that."
From a hole in the wall she pulled a long knife and rubbed it against the reindeer's neck. After the poor animal had kicked up its heels, the robber girl laughed and pulled Gerda down into the bed with her. "Are you going to keep that knife in bed with you?" Gerda asked, and looked at it a little frightened.
"I always sleep with my knife," the little robber girl said. "You never can tell what may happen. But let's hear again what you told me before about that little Kai, and about why you are wandering through the wide world."
Gerda told the story all over again, while the wild pigeons cooed in their cage overhead, and the tame pigeons slept. The little robber girl clasped one arm around Gerda's neck, gripped her knife in the other hand, fell asleep, and snored so that one could hear her. But Gerda could not close her eyes at all. She did not know whether she was to live or whether she was to die. The robbers sat around their fire, singing and drinking, and the old robber woman was turning somersaults. It was a terrible sight for a little girl to see. Then the wood pigeons said,
"Coo, coo. We have seen little Kai. A white hen was carrying his sled, and Kai sat in the Snow Queen's sleigh. They swooped low over the trees where we lay in our nest. The Snow Queen blew upon us, and all the young pigeons died except us. Coo,
What is that you're saying up there? Cried Gerda. Where was the Snow Queen going? Do you know anything about it?
She was probably bound for Lapland, where they always have snow and ice. Why don't you ask the reindeer who is tethered beside you?
Yes, there is ice and snow in that glorious land, the reindeer told her. You can prance about freely across those great glittering fields. The Snow Queen has her summer tent there, but her stronghold is a castle up nearer the North Pole, on the island called Spitzbergen.
Oh, Kai, little Kai, Gerda sighed.
Lie still, said the robber girl, or I'll stick my knife in your stomach.
In the morning, Gerda told her all that the wood pigeons had said. The little robber girl looked quite thoughtful. She nodded her head and exclaimed,
Leave it to me, leave it to me.
Do you know where Lapland is? She asked the reindeer.
Who knows it better than I? The reindeer said, and his eyes sparkled. There I was born, there I was bred, and there I kicked my heels in freedom, across the fields of snow.
Listen, the robber girl said to Gerda. As you see, all the men are away. Mother is still here, and here she'll stay. But before the morning is over, she will drink out of that big bottle, and then she usually dozes off for a nap. As soon as that happens, I will do you a good turn.
She jumped out of bed, rushed over, and threw her arms around her mother's neck, pulled at her beard bristles, and said,
Good morning, my dear nanny goat.
Her mother thumped her nose until it was red and blue. But all that was done out of pure love. As soon as the mother had tipped up the bottle and dozed off to sleep, the little robber girl ran to the reindeer and said,
I have a good notion to keep you here and tickle you with my sharp knife. You are so funny when I do. But never mind that. I'll untie your rope and help you find your way outside so that you can run back to Lapland. But you must put your best leg forward and carry this little girl to the Snow Queen's palace, where her playmate is. I suppose you heard what she told me, for she spoke so loud, and you were eavesdropping.
The reindeer was so happy that he bounded into the air. The robber girl hoisted little Gerda on his back, carefully tied her in place, and even gave her a little pillow to sit on.
I don't do things halfway, she said. Here, take back your fur boots, for it's going to be bitter cold. I'll keep your muff, because it's such a pretty one. But your fingers mustn't get cold. Here are my mother's big mittens, which will come right up to your elbows. Pull them on. Now your hands look just like my ugly mother's big paws.
And Gerda shed happy tears.
I don't care to see you blubbering, said the little robber girl. You ought to look pleased now. Here, take these 2 loaves of bread and this ham along, so that you won't starve.
When these provisions were tied on the back of the reindeer, the little robber girl opened the door and called in all the big dogs. Then she cut the tether with her knife and said to the reindeer,
Now run, but see that you take good care of the little girl.
Gerda waved her big mittens to the little robber girl and said goodbye. Then the reindeer bounded away, over stumps and stones, straight through the great forest, over swamps and across the plains, as fast as he could run. The wolves howled, the ravens shrieked, and
Kashaw! Kashoo!
the red streaks of light ripped through the heavens with a noise that sounded like sneezing. "Those are my old northern lights," said the reindeer. "See how they flash." And on he ran, faster than ever, by night and day. The loaves were eaten, and the whole ham was eaten. And there they were, in Lapland. Sixth story. The Lap Woman and the Finn Woman. They stopped in front of the little hut, and a makeshift dwelling it was. The roof of it almost touched the ground, and the doorway was so low that the family had to lie on their stomachs to crawl in it or out of it. No one was at home except an old Lap woman who was cooking fish over a whale oil lamp. The reindeer told her Gerda's whole story. But first he told his own, which he thought was much more important. Besides, Gerda was so cold that she couldn't say a thing. "Oh, you poor creatures," the Lap woman said. "You've still got such a long way to go. Well, you will have to travel hundreds of miles into the Finnmark. For it's there that the Snow Queen is taking a country vacation and burning her blue fireworks every evening. I'll jot down a message on a dried codfish, for I haven't any paper. I want you to take it to the Finn woman who lives up there. She'll be able to tell you more about it than I can." As soon as Gerda had thawed out and had had something to eat and drink, the Lap woman wrote a few words on a dried codfish, told Gerda to take good care of it, and tied her again on the back of the reindeer. Off he ran, and all night long the skies crackled and swished as the most beautiful northern lights flashed over their heads. At last they came to the Finnmark, and knocked at the Finn woman's chimney, for she hadn't a sign of any door. It was so hot inside that the Finn woman went about almost naked. She was small and terribly dowdy, but she at once helped little Gerda off with her mittens and boots and loosened her clothes. Otherwise the heat would have wilted her. Then the woman put a piece of ice on the reindeer's head and read what was written on the codfish. She read it 3 times, and when she knew it by heart, she put the fish into the kettle of soup, for they might as well eat it. She never wasted anything. The reindeer told her his own story first, and then little Gerda's. The Finn woman winked a knowing eye, but she didn't say anything. "You are such a wise woman," said the reindeer. "I know that you can tie all the winds of the world together with a bit of cotton thread. If the sailor unties one knot, he gets a favourable wind. If he unties another, he gets a stiff gale, while if he unties the third and fourth knots, such a tempest rages that it flattens the trees in the forest. Won't you give this little girl something to drink that will make her as strong as 12 men, so that she may overpower the Snow Queen?" 12 strong men? The Finn woman sniffed. Much good that would be. She went to the shelf, took down a big rolled-up skin, and unrolled it. On this skin, strange characters were written, and the Finn woman read them until the sweat rolled down her forehead. The reindeer again begged her to help Gerda, and little Gerda looked at her with such tearful, imploring eyes that the woman began winking again. She took the reindeer aside in a corner, and while she was putting another piece of ice on his head, she whispered to him, "Little Kai is indeed with the Snow Queen, and everything there just suits him fine. He thinks it is the best place in all the world, but that's because he has a splinter of glass in his heart and a small piece of it in his eye. Unless these can be gotten out, he will never be human again, and the Snow Queen will hold him in her power." "But can't you fix little Gerda something to drink which will give her more power than all those things?" "No power that I could give could be as great as that which she already has. Don't you see how men and beasts are compelled to serve her, and how far she has come in the wide world since she started out in her naked feet? We mustn't tell her about this power. Strength lies in her heart, because she is such a sweet, innocent child. If she herself cannot reach the Snow Queen and rid little Kai of those pieces of glass, then there's no help that we can give her. The Snow Queen's garden lies about 8 miles from here. You may carry the little girl there and put her down by the big bush covered with red berries that grows on the snow. Then don't you stand there gossiping, but hurry to get back here." The Finn woman lifted little Gerda onto the reindeer, and he galloped away as fast as he could. "Oh!" cried Gerda. "I forgot my boots and I forgot my mittens." She soon felt the need of them in that knife-like cold, but the reindeer did not dare to stop. He galloped on until they came to the big bush that was covered with red berries. Here he set down Gerda and kissed her on the mouth, while big shining tears ran down his face. Then he ran back as fast as he could. Little Gerda stood there without boots and without mittens, right in the middle of icy Finnmark. She ran as fast as ever she could. A whole regiment of snowflakes swirled toward her, but they did not fall from the sky, for there was not a cloud up there, and the northern lights were ablaze. The flakes skirmished along the ground, and the nearer they came, the larger they grew. Gerda remembered how large and strange they had appeared when she looked at them under the magnifying glass, but here they were much more monstrous and terrifying. They were alive. They were the Snow Queen's advance guard, and their shapes were most strange. Some looked like ugly, overgrown porcupines. Some were like a knot of snakes that stuck out their heads in every direction, and others were like fat little bears with every hair a bristle. All of them were glistening white, for all were living snowflakes. It was so cold that, as little Gerda said the Lord's Prayer, she could see her breath freezing in front of her mouth, like a cloud of smoke. It grew thicker and thicker, and took the shape of little angels that grew bigger and bigger the moment they touched the ground. All of them had helmets on their heads, and they carried shields and lances in their hands. Rank upon rank they increased, and when Gerda had finished her prayer, she was surrounded by a legion of angels. They struck the dread snowflakes with their lances, and shivered them into 1,000 pieces. Little Gerda walked on, unmolested and cheerful. The angels rubbed her hands and feet to make them warmer, and she trotted briskly along to the Snow Queen's palace. But now, let us see how little Kai was getting on. Little Gerda was furthest from his mind, and he hadn't the slightest idea that she was just outside the palace. Seventh story. What happened in the Snow Queen's palace, and what came of it? The walls of the palace were driven snow. The windows and doors were the knife-edged wind. There were more than 100 halls, shaped as the snow had drifted, and the largest of these extended for many a mile. All were lighted by the flare of the northern lights. All of the halls were so immense and so empty, so brilliant and so glacial. There was never a touch of gaiety in them, never so much as a little dance for the polar bears, at which the storm blast could have served for music, and the polar bears could have waddled about on their hind legs to show off their best manners. There was never a little party with such games as blind bear's buff, or hide the poor-kerchief for the cubs, nor even a little afternoon coffee over which the white fox vixens could gossip. Empty, vast, and frigid were the Snow Queen's halls. The northern lights flared with such regularity that you could time exactly when they would be at the highest and lowest. In the middle of the vast, empty hall of snow was a frozen lake. It was cracked into 1,000 pieces, but each piece was shaped so exactly like the others that it seemed a work of wonderful craftsmanship. The Snow Queen sat in the exact centre of it when she was at home, and she spoke of this as sitting on her mirror of reason. She said this mirror was the only one of its kind, and the best thing in all the world. Little Kai was blue. Yes, almost black with the cold. But he did not feel it, because the Snow Queen had kissed away his icy tremblings, and his heart itself had almost turned to ice. He was shifting some sharp, flat pieces of ice to and fro, trying to fit them into every possible pattern, for he wanted to make something with them. It was like the Chinese puzzle game that we play at home, juggling little flat pieces of wood about into special designs. Kai was cleverly arranging his pieces in the game of ice-cold reason. To him, the patterns were highly remarkable and of the utmost importance, for the chip of glass in his eye made him see them that way. He arranged his pieces to spell out many words, but he could never find the way to make the one word he was so eager to form. The word was eternity. The Snow Queen had said to him, "If you can puzzle that out, you shall be your own master, and I'll give you the whole world and a new pair of skates." But he could not puzzle it out. "Now I am going to make a flying trip to the warm countries," the Snow Queen told him. "I want to go and take a look into the black cauldrons." She meant the volcanoes of Etna and Vesuvius. "I must whiten them up a bit. They need it, and it will be such a relief after all those yellow lemons and purple grapes." And away she flew. Kai sat all alone in that endless, empty, frigid hall, and puzzled over the pieces of ice until he almost cracked his skull. He sat so stiff and still that one might have thought he was frozen to death. All of a sudden, little Gerda walked up to the palace through the great gate, which was a knife-edged wind. But Gerda said her evening prayer. The wind was lulled to rest, and the little girl came on into the vast, cold, empty hall. There she saw Kai. She recognized him at once, and ran to throw her arms around him. She held him close and cried, "Kai, dearest little Kai, I've found you at last." But he sat still, and stiff, and cold. Gerda shed hot tears, and when they fell upon him, they went straight to his heart. They melted the lump of ice, and burned away the splinter of glass in it. He looked up at her, and she sang, "Where roses bloom so sweetly in the vale, there shall you find the Christ child without fail." Kai burst into tears. He cried so freely that the little piece of glass in his eye was washed right out. Gerda! He knew her, and he cried out in his happiness, "My sweet little Gerda! Where have you been so long? And where have I been?" He looked around him and said, "How cold it is here! How enormous and empty!" He held fast to Gerda, who laughed until happy tears rolled down her cheeks. Their bliss was so heavenly that even the bits of glass danced about them and shared in their happiness. When the pieces grew tired, they dropped into a pattern which made the very word that the Snow Queen had told Kai he must find before he became his own master, and received the whole world and a new pair of skates. Gerda kissed his cheeks, and they turned pink again. She kissed his eyes, and they sparkled like hers. She kissed his hands and feet, and he became strong and well. The Snow Queen might come home now whenever she pleased, for there stood the order for Kai's release, written in letters of shining ice. Hand in hand, Kai and Gerda strolled out of that enormous palace. They talked about grandmother and about the roses on their roof. Wherever they went, the wind died down and the sun shone out. When they came to the bush that was covered with red berries, the reindeer was waiting to meet them. He had brought along a young reindeer mate who had warm milk for the children to drink and who kissed them on the mouth. Then these reindeer carried Gerda and Kai first to the Finn woman. They warmed themselves in her hot room, and when she had given them directions for their journey home, they rode on to the Lapp woman. She had made them new clothes and was ready to take them along in her sleigh. Side by side, the reindeer ran with them to the limits of the North Country, where the first green buds were to be seen. Here they said goodbye to the Toon reindeer and to the Lapp woman. Farewell, they all said. Now the first little birds began to chirp, and there were green buds all around them in the forest. Through the woods came riding a young girl on a magnificent horse that Gerda recognized, for it had once been harnessed to the golden carriage. The girl wore a bright red cap on her head and a pair of pistols in her belt. She was the little robber girl who had grown tired of staying at home and who was setting out on a journey to the North Country. If she didn't like it there, why, the world was wide, and there were many other places where she could go. She recognized Gerda at once, and Gerda knew her too. It was a happy meeting.
"You're a fine one for gadding about," she told little Kai. "I'd just like to know whether you deserve to have someone running to the end of the earth for your sake."
But Gerda patted her cheek and asked her about the prince and the princess.
"They are travelling in foreign lands," the girl told her.
"And the crow?"
"Oh, the crow is dead," she answered. "His tame lady love is now a widow, and she wears a bit of black wool wrapped around her leg. She takes great pity on herself, but that's all stuff and nonsense. Now tell me what has happened to you and how you caught up with Kai."
Gerda and Kai told her their story.
"Snip, snap, snurry, bassalurry," said the robber girl. "So everything came out all right."
She shook them by the hand and promised that if ever she passed through their town she would come to see them. And then she rode away. Kai and Gerda held each other by the hand, and as they walked along they had a wonderful spring weather. The land was green and strewn with flowers, church bells rang, and they saw the high steeples of a big town. It was the one where they used to live. They walked straight to grandmother's house and up the stairs and into the room where everything was just as it was when they left it. And the clock said tick-tock, and its hands were telling the time. But the moment they came in the door, they noticed one change. They were grown up now. The roses on the roof looked in at the open window, and their 2 little stools were still there. Kai and Gerda sat down on them and held each other by the hand. Both of them had forgotten the icy, empty splendour of the Snow Queen's palace as completely as if it were some bad dream. Grandmother sat in God's good sunshine, reading to them from her Bible. "Except ye become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven." Kai and Gerda looked into each other's eyes, and at last they understood the meaning of their old hymn. Where roses bloom so sweetly in the vale, there shall you find the Christ child without fail. And there they sat, grown up, but children still, children at heart. And it was summer, warm, glorious summer. And that brings us to the end of Hans Christian Andersen's The Snow Queen. Thank you so much for listening. That was a lovely story, a peculiar story, as so many of these classics are in many ways. You know, it's 180 years old, just about 176 years old. But a very charming story, extremely vivid and imaginative. Of course, there's those Christian elements that are running throughout, which is a common theme with H C Andersen's work. Really hope you enjoyed it, whether you're new to the story or whether this is an old favourite. Definite Alice in Wonderland vibes there too, I think. I was just gonna Google the publication date of Alice in Wonderland. I've forgotten. Was it 30 something? Oh no, 1865. So yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I was thinking that it was earlier somehow, which just didn't make sense to me because it really felt like there was some influence there, and I knew how many people have been influenced by H C Andersen. So yeah, Alice in Wonderland published 1865, so 21 years after The Snow Queen. Good stuff. Thank you for listening to that, sharing that story with me over the last couple of live streams, yesterday and today. Really hope you enjoyed it. For those of you that weren't there at the beginning of the stream or in yesterday's stream, this is the first time I've ever read The Snow Queen, and I didn't pre-read it before these streams. So, of course, live reading is a different sort of challenge to producing a more polished audiobook. There are going to be little mistakes and errors, and there are all sorts of things that I would do differently if I was going to produce this as a polished little audiobook of my own. So I just worked around it as it went. Like I said, apart from the first story, I didn't have a clue what was coming. So I really just went with my gut feelings, and hopefully it was a pleasant listening experience. So thank you for sharing that with me. On the exact day 176 years later after this story was originally published, on the 21st of December 1844. Amazing, really. Amazing, really. Oh, I've just realised there's a little mark on my webcam. Is that a mark on my webcam, or is that a mark on my... Oh, it's not. It's just a piece of text that had got almost cut off. I was really worried for a second. I was like, thinking my screen was damaged or the webcam had got some dirt on it or something, but it was just a little bit of the text that was cut off at the top there. Yeah, that was that. I was mentioning that yesterday, Kat, that Frozen was inspired by it. So many stories have been inspired by the Snow Queen and Hans Christian Andersen's work in general. And Tom was saying, so the Queen wasn't that evil, I guess. Yeah, interesting. What do we think about the Queen? What were her motives there? So, I mean, she did imprison Kai, but it's strange because, I mean, you know, Kai was already sort of tainted at this point. You know, he'd already got the glass in his heart and in his eye. But she was more of like, rather than a sort of wicked witch or something, she was more like a sort of snow fairy, snow queen, in a sort of a bit of a, not a Greek sense maybe, but it was like maybe more of a pagan sense. You know, she sort of looked over anything winter, ice, snow related. She was like an elemental queen or something like that. You know, she lived in her ice palace, deep into Lapland, into the North Pole. I pictured her, the very, 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 very center of her palace being right on the tip of the globe, so to speak, like right on the North Pole, and then sort of spreading out from there with the elements protecting her. But she had imprisoned, for whatever reason, Kai, and the sister, almost like a messiah in some ways, was unbeknowingly summoning her army to defeat. This is what really reminded me of Alice in Wonderland, among some other things like the talking plants and things. But yeah, the army could defeat the snowflakes that were guarding the palace, and she could gain access to the palace and rescue her brother. Again, Pokemon style. The first Pokemon movie when Ash is killed, and spoiler alert, and the Pokemon bring him back with their tears, with their love and sadness. Yeah, an elemental deity. Absolutely, yeah, I can go with that. I don't know if she had godlike powers, but I guess she did, really. I mean, that's what I was meaning by sort of in a Greek sense, or in some sort of pagan sense, that if there could be many elementals, and she was the Ice Queen, the Snow Queen, the guardian of the ice element sort of thing. It was interesting. Enjoyed it. And like I said at the start of the reading in yesterday's stream, this is H C Andersen's longest work. And we've been reading a few of his pieces over these last few weeks. The Little Mermaid is next on my agenda. I'd also like to read Thumbelina, Ugly Duckling, Steadfast Tin Soldier, maybe The Tinderbox, maybe Princess and the Pea. Yeah, we'll see. There's so many. No, that's there was definitely that sort of theme, wasn't there, Rachel? This idea of I guess it's a simplified way of looking at things. I don't really like to think of things in that regard, sort of like that there is evil in some people that leads them to do the things they do. But I absolutely understand what you mean there, Rachel. Thinking of why some people can only see distorted, ugly, hateful things when they look at the world, or at least that they commit distorted, ugly, hateful acts and things like that. But yeah, I really enjoyed the read. I hope you did too. And on the next book club, I'm guessing it won't be tomorrow evening. But I will try my best to get better with scheduling streams and announcing streams and everything. But if I don't stream tomorrow, it will probably be Boxing Day, the 26th. And I would love to read The Nutcracker. But I'm thinking it's going to take quite a few readings. I was saying yesterday it's only 80 pages, but I was also quickly realizing that is, depending how those 80 pages are spaced, that maybe it's a little bit too audacious to do in a live reading. I'll have a little look through it and see what I think. No Nutcracker tonight, Shannon. No Nutcracker tonight. I think I will call it a day for today. It was just lovely finishing off that story. I was thinking of whether we should just have another little short wintry story. But I think I would like to wind it down for this evening. You look very sad by that, Shannon. Because I'm wanting to have, like I said, a few more live streams over this winter period. And Nutcracker has been much requested. How long is the Goblin story? Let's have a look. The Princess and the Goblin by George MacDonald. Is this quite a long one? Oh, wow. 256 pages. This has it as 308. Oh, wow, that's a really substantial, children's fantasy novel. I wasn't sure if that was a short story. But yeah, there are various other somewhat festive or winter themed fairy tales. Oh, okay, Tom. I was just gonna say maybe I'll just put it up for the vote sort of thing and see if there's something that you would like me to read before I head off tonight, like a short little story, like I did yesterday with "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," right at the end there, before I headed over to Twitch for a bit of Skyrim. But I think that's a great idea. I think I'll be able to find a version of it. Tom, thank you for the suggestion. Let me just have a little browse through the chat, and then unless someone else has got some other ideas, I could definitely give that a go. The gingerbread man, that sounds great. What's been going on in the chat whilst I've been reading? Give me a second. Let me just drink some water so I don't pass out. Yeah, so this was all before we started. Excuse me. Yeah, core goes the crow. That would be amazing, Caitlin. You were saying that all you can think of is an animated version of the Snow Queen over Stephen's reading. Yeah, that would be absolutely amazing. I would love to work with an animator, by the way, and have someone help me animate some videos. That could be absolutely incredible. So Madeline was Madeline was headling. Madeline was heading off to bed. She definitely enjoyed it. Good stuff. And thank you for the praise, Caitlin. Shannon was out in Walmart with Stephen in your ears. Yeah, that's great. I do the same. I always wonder where you're all at and try and picture you going about your lives. It's super cool. And Raya dropped in as well, saying that she's listening from the Philippines. Lovely stuff. Nice to see you. Oh, and Caitlin popped in. Yeah, I saw you waving at one point. Sorry to hear you've had a bad day, Caitlin. Glad to hear that the reading is helping a little bit. Oh, and Glenn popped in from Canada. Good stuff. Nice to see you, Glenn. Yeah, thank you for helping Caitlin out a little bit there. Filling her in on what we were reading. And that the stories 1 to 3 were in yesterday's stream. That's available on my channel, so just have a look on my channel page. Yesterday's stream is there for chapters 1 to 3, and then of course we've had, I said chapters again, you know what I mean, and then stories 4, 5, 6 and 7 today. Yeah, the Robber Girl was, I was trying not to make it colony, even though I could sort of hear it a little bit. I was trying to make her a bit more northern sounding. I'm talking English northern here, rather than some of these southern phonetics. But there was definitely some colony elements in there. I liked your thought there, Caitlin, that you imagined her as a kind of gremlin. She was a funny character. It was, I honestly didn't really know what to do with the Robber Girl, because it was so violent, but they were friends. I just found it a little bit strange, that one. I really didn't know how to play it. So when the mother beats the child, but it's all in love, I just found it strange. It's so dysfunctional, obviously absolutely terrible behavior. It was almost like a bit of a comic criticism of class or something. It was a strange thing. So yeah, I wasn't really sure whether just to make her really angry and unpleasant, or what really to do with the robber girl. She was an odd character, I thought. I'm not surprised, Kat. You were saying that your sister was terrified that the little robber was going to eat her. Yeah, she was dangerous. And Snippy Cutwell joined as well. Yeah, I was going for it today. Going for a bit of a longer reading sesh. Glad you've been enjoying it. And thank you to Nate. Cat was making goodie bags. Like that codfish mail. Yeah, fish mail. That was nice. That was nice. Phishing scam. Oh, and hello to Rich. I said hello to you earlier, Rich. Yeah, you were right there from the beginning, weren't you? Yeah. You were one of the first in. Fun stuff, Snippy. Oh, and Caitlin headed off to bed as well. Thank you for joining, though, Caitlin. Always nice to see you if you watch this back. And then Logan dropped in. Better late than never, Logan. Yeah, you've got to catch up with it, Logan. It was a nice read. Oh, and so Karen suggested, hello to Karen. You suggested The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus. What's that one all about? I bet this is getting a lot of reads at the moment. I'm not sure. Okay, so it's like it's a short story, about 100 pages or so. Yeah, I should look into that one as well. Thank you for the suggestion, Karen. And thank you to Raya. Thanks, Olivia. Now you're discussing Walmart. Yeah, I was expecting more of a fight too, I must say, Olivia. But I think it was kind of refreshing in a way that there wasn't some grand battle or something. I guess it just wasn't necessary. And she was off frosting up Etna and Vesuvius. Glad you enjoyed it, EA. And thank you so much again for that super chat earlier, EA. That was very unexpected. Thank you so much for your generosity. Really appreciate it. And thank you to SN. Really nice. And then we're getting to the post read chat. Oh, it's Joseph Conrad. Yeah, I've looked into the Heart of Darkness before. Possibly. I've heard that it's a controversial story in 2020. I would have to look into it a little bit more, whether I would feel comfortable narrating Heart of Darkness, but it's a good suggestion, absolutely. Who suggested that? Rich, yeah, thank you for the suggestion. I have had a little browse of that in the past, but I've never read it. Oh, and Mark, so you didn't realise whose stream you were joining, Mark? Yeah, I'm the Dracula guy, Secret Garden, Narnia, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, all sorts of stuff over the years. And welcome to the stream, Mark, as well. Nice to have you here. Okay, I'm just about caught up. Oh, you're so generous, Shannon. Thank you so much. I've got to say, I love that you use the super chat to send me messages like that. It's ridiculously kind of you. Thanks so much, Shannon. Thanks so much. So we had 4 votes for the gingerbread man. So I guess that won the little vote there. Oh, that's great. That's great. Thank you for the suggestion, Tom. Yeah, they were odd, weren't they, Kat? The robber people. They were odd. I'm not sure how I feel about the robber people. I thought the reindeer was lovely, though. And I was sort of picturing the reindeer from Frozen the whole time. Oh, and welcome to Misbehaving as well. Cool name, by the way, Misbehaving. I like that. Alright, let's have a look then. Let's see if I can just get a nice, easy to read copy of The Gingerbread Man. And then I really must head off because it is very late here. It's 2:15. But if it's just a short one, then that is fine. That was a bit trickier than I expected. Might have to request a link. Let me just see. I don't know, maybe this is okay. But this is retold by someone. Yeah, I think this is a very simplified version. I'm guessing that there's many versions of the Gingerbread Man. Is there an iconic, particularly famous version of the Gingerbread Man? You know, I've no idea who. If there's an original author of this, I can imagine that there's been very many tellings. I don't know anything about the story. Only that it's just everybody knows the Gingerbread Man. I love the Gingerbread Man from Shrek. Some awesome stuff there. Gosh, it's so many years since I watched Shrek. I could definitely do a little Shrekathon. Oh, Tom, you're sending the link. Well, I can't see it on my screen here. I can see it there, but I can't see it here where I can actually grab it. Give me a second. Give me a second. It's not showing here either. There we go. Yeah, it's one of those things. I feel like, yeah.
Not my gumdrop buttons.
Like, I feel like everybody knows the story but has no idea where it's come from. It's just one of those. See if this works. Oh, this is a really nice presentation here, actually. Thanks for this, Tom. This is great. This is great. Yeah, this will work just fine. I wonder who this is attributed to. So this is from a book called St. Nicholas. A monthly magazine for boys and girls, volume 2, it says. From Wiki External Links. Great. Thanks, Tom. Rightio. Rightio. Typing with one hand, we have to stretch your fingers out. Alright. Let's do it. I want one thing. Shrek Gingerbread Man. This is such a good scene. I need to rewatch.
Run as fast as you can. You can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread man. You're a monster. I'm not a monster here. You are. You and the rest of that fairy tale trash poisoning my perfect world. Now tell me, where are the others?
Yeah, I know that one, Shannon. Is that a Brothers Grimm story?
Fair to you creatures.
I wonder.
Now my patience has reached its end. Tell me, or I'll... No, not the buttons. Not my gumdrop buttons. All right then, who's hiding them?
Great stuff. I know foxes, they get a bad rep, don't they? I've always said that. Sometimes they are protagonists. They can be cunning, courageous leaders, and quite smart, and all the rest of it. But they can be the nasty type too. But I prefer it when they have foxes as more good or mixed, and wolves. But wolves shouldn't be evil either. I mean, I don't know. But yeah, all right. Oh, it's actually called not the Gingerbread Man. It is the Gingerbread Boy. Interesting spelling as well. I'm just going to write it how they've written it here, just because I find it interesting and want to know why it's... But it's really oddly formatted, this, isn't it? It's like really weirdly spaced out. Okay, I won't do this. It just that is how it's written. But I've noticed that there's very odd spacing throughout this whole thing. Foxes are divine creatures, Jelena. Wiser words were never said. So, this is... Oh, let me just hide this. This is the Gingerbread Boy. Now you shall hear a story that somebody's great-great-grandmother told a little girl ever so many years ago. There was once a little old man and a little old woman who lived in a little old house in the edge of a wood. They would have been a very happy old couple, but for one thing. They had no little child, and they wished for one very much. One day, when the little old woman was baking gingerbread, she cut a cake in the shape of a little boy, and put it in the oven. Presently she went to the oven to see if it was baked. As soon as the oven door was open, the little gingerbread boy jumped out, and began to run away as fast as he could. The little old woman called her husband, and they both ran after him, but they could not catch him, and soon the gingerbread boy came to a barn full of threshers. He called out to them as he went by, saying,
"I've run away from a little old woman, a little old man, and I can run away from you, I can."
Then the barn full of threshers set out to run after him, but though they ran fast, they could not catch him, and he ran on till he came to a field full of mowers. He called out to them,
"I've run away from a little old woman, a little old man, a barn full of threshers, and I can run away from you, I can."
Then the mowers began to run after him, but they couldn't catch him, and he ran on till he came to a cow. He called out to her,
"I've run away from a little old woman, a little old man, a barn full of threshers, a field full of mowers, and I can run away from you, I can."
But though the cow started at once, she couldn't catch him, and soon he came to a pig. He called out to the pig,
"I've run away from a little old woman, a little old man, a barn full of threshers, a field full of mowers, a cow, and I can run away from you, I can."
But the pig ran and couldn't catch him, and he ran till he came across a fox. And to him he called out,
"I've run away from a little old woman, a little old man, a barn full of threshers, a field full of mowers, a cow and a pig, and I can run away from you, I can."
Then the fox set out to run. Now foxes can run very fast, and so the fox soon caught the gingerbread boy and began to eat him up. Presently the gingerbread boy said,
"Oh dear, I'm quarter gone."
And then,
"Oh, I'm half gone."
And soon,
"I'm 3/4 gone."
And at last,
I'm all gone."
And never spoke again. And there we have it. That's the end of the gingerbread boy. There we have it. Could be a rhyming scheme thing, Tom. I'm not sure. But I don't feel like the whole story would... No. I don't know. If the whole thing was performed in a certain way, maybe it could. Maybe it could be. Don't know. Because it's written, "The gingerbread boy. Now you shall hear a story that some bod is great grandmother told a little girl ever so many years ago." I was trying to imitate the little spaces. It was a hungry fox. Yeah, it was very silly. Probably not my best gingerbread boy voice, but I couldn't remember if there was a specific tune to this. I feel like there is. It was silly. It was short and silly and fun. Thanks for the recommendation, Tom. That was nice. Oh, and Shannon, thanks so much for the $5 in the super chat. Thanks. I saw you saying, actually, I promise another $5 if you read the boy in that voice. How could I not? I don't know. How could I not? Good stuff. Good stuff. What's this, Caitlin? Would you ever read the Stinky Cheese Man story? It sounds like my cup of tea, to be fair, doesn't it? I'm not going to read any more tonight, but I'm just going to give it a quick search. The Stinky Cheese Man story. Stinky's my middle name. The Stinky Cheese Man and Other Fairly Stupid Tales retells and wreaks havoc on the allegories we all thought we knew by heart. In these irreverent variations on well-known themes, the ugly duckling grows up to be an ugly duck, and the princess who kisses the frog wins only a mouthful of amphibian slime. I like it. I like it. It is a modern work, this, 1992, by John Skeitschka? I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. Sounds great, though. Sounds great. Love the concept. Alright. I will call it a night for tonight, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me again. If you missed any of the Snow Queen, just catch up with yesterday's stream for the first 3 parts, and then today's stream, earlier in the stream, for the second half, the final 4 parts. Shannon has kindly added timestamps to yesterday's video, so it's very easy to find the reading from yesterday. And don't miss "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" that I read yesterday at the end of the stream as well. It was a good one. Yeah, it is technically, Shannon. So, good night to everybody. Thanks so much, and I hope to see you soon. Like I said, I'm planning a couple more streams during this sort of festive season. Possible Nutcracker. There's many things that we could have a go with. You've been lovely company. Thanks ever so much. And yeah, just use my video archive to look through. Like, there's so many books that you might have missed on my channel. So The Secret Garden and Dracula have gained a lot of views over the last year, but there is a number of things. Use my playlists. So even though I've had to remove various things, and there's been certain works that I wasn't able to re-upload onto this channel from old channels that I've had in the past and things, there is still a lot of content out there. So have a look through my playlists. There's like a full audiobook playlist, there's chapter by chapter playlists, there's various things by author or the name of the book, and I'm going to be working on all sorts of things next year as well. A Little Princess, Alice in Wonderland, various things I want to start, all sorts of ideas and things. So yeah, stick with me. Thanks for being here. It's been great. Good night. Thank you so much for the donations. Cannot begin to tell you how much I appreciate that. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for sending those super chats. Thanks, Kat. You're absolutely more than welcome. Thank you to all my patrons and my channel members, those official Fox fans. Massively appreciate it. Oh, honestly, Jelena, I would absolutely love to read Watership Down. I've practiced it to myself a very long time ago, and I looked at it again just before I read Animal Farm, another one that I really recommend, of course. Give my Animal Farm complete audiobook a go. But I was choosing between Animal Farm or Watership Down, and then I just caught myself and I thought, you know what, I shouldn't do Watership Down, it is copyrighted. So I went with Animal Farm, and I was a fan of that story. You know, I'd read it many years ago. But Watership Down is a wonderful book, and I think it really does suit my style of reading. I know I try all sorts of different voices and different styles depending on what story it is and everything. But the Watership Down, I really, really had thought through those first 2 or 3 chapters and sort of planned it out and given different voices to the characters. I could really, really see it working. But, you know, with it being copyrighted, it's just the way of the world. I would absolutely love to do it, though. I really, really, really would. There's so many stories that I would love to do and wish I could continue with, you know, things that I've had to stop over the years as well. But if I don't see you until after Christmas, then if you celebrate Christmas at all, of course, have a wonderful Christmas. Take care at this strange time. Just try and make the best of things. I know it's easier said than done. But you're a valuable part of this community. And I will read to you soon. So yeah, take care, guys. Have a good holiday if you can get some space to relax. You know, just try and make the best of each day as it comes. You know, we're all very lucky to be here, even if it's a difficult time, a bad day, bad week, bad month, bad year, whatever. Thank you for being here. Okay. Good night, everybody. Read to you soon.